Welcome back, guys, to another Azur Lane Datamine video. Today we're going to be looking at the brand new German event Rondo at Rainbow's End. Although this is a German event, it's not a Kriegsmarine event. This is actually going to be the first SMS event, which roughly translates to His Majesty's ship in German. As you may have guessed, these are the Imperial German ships from World War I. This is actually really exciting to me as a history buff. We're not getting paper KMS ships, we're actually getting real older ships from a different time period. This is something that I've wanted for a while, so I'm actually really hyped about this. Even in the live stream announcement, I was so under the impression that they were going to be paper ships. I was like, it took me a second to realize that, no, these are like the 1910s and 1920 versions, not these paper ships that World of Warships created. Now, if you were hoping for Sovietskaya Soyuz to appear because she was in the Prelude banner, well, she didn't. She teased us again. When she does eventually come, she better have the personality of a tease, because holy crap, has Yostar been fake spoiling her a lot lately. And if you're an HMS fan, better luck next time. At least you made it in there. Thank you for your sacrifice. As for the rest of the patch notes, there's not a lot to go over here other than some minor bug fixes. So we can get right into the events today. First things first, let's talk about the event itself. It's going to be a pretty basic event. Here are the map drops. There's no new gear, and actually the old gear here isn't that impressive. Newer players could grind D1 for some decent HE guns, but most players are going to be grinding D3 so that they can maybe drop Seydlitz. If you sweep the banner, you get the chat frame. If you're interested in what the fleet tech is for these ships, here it is. Of course, we are getting another ship that's not part of the Gacha event, and that is Little Prinz Eugen. Isn't she cute? This Manju thinks so. Anyway, she will be an NPC character that will join your dock, and if you get her to trust you enough, then she'll join your dock permanently at the end of the event. If you don't, then she will leave. So now, without further ado, we can get into my favorite part of the video, the ships and the stats. So let's start it off with the ship that I'm the most excited to find out about, the twin personality Swans. The 2-for-1 waifu ship SMS Emden. She is an SR light cruiser. So initially, I'm inclined to compare her stats to the KMS best light cruiser, Mainz. And looking at that right off the bat, they do not compare. Mainz is so much tankier with her medium armor instead of light armor and a much bigger HP pool. You'd think that would be made up by some other stats, but for the most part, from firepower to anti-air, Emden is behind, only really being a little bit above in torpedo stat and reload stat. However, there might be some rhyme to that reason. If we look at her gun equipment, we see that she has no anti-air guns. She obviously is a World War I ship, so she doesn't have to deal with carriers. This means that in any carrier map, she's probably going to have a survivability issue. However, that does mean she does get double guns and torpedoes, so she gets basically effectively what is a main gun +1. Her main gun is a DD gun, and then in her second gear slot, she can equip either a light cruiser gun or a destroyer gun, and then she has a torpedo slot as well. So in terms of DPS, this is nice, especially on maps that don't have a lot of aviation-based damage. However, we will have to look into the skills to see if she compares with the mains at Fate Simulated +5. Skill number 1 is Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Really, that was the name of the skill. Okay, when the secondary gun slot is using a light cruiser gun, it gets 25% efficiency for the main gun and secondary slot. This is actually very good because those slot efficiencies were a little bit low, and now that they go, plus 25%, they're actually very good. The first slot would have 145%, and the second slot would have 100%. So that's much better than what they were. Also, you fire a barrage every 20 seconds, and that barrage has a 30% speed reduction for 5 seconds. The 20-second mark is not a great mark to be coming out at, but it is a guaranteed barrage and it does reduce speed, but it's only 30%. If, however, you equip the secondary gun slot with a destroyer gun, she generates a shield every 10 seconds and it blocks 5 bullets, or it lasts 5 seconds. If it's broken before it expires, she launches a barrage that heals herself by 15% of the damage the barrage dealt to the enemy. So far, I'm thinking that in this skill, I'm going to be using the light cruiser gun slot a lot more. 25% efficiency for both of my gun slots seems more important, as well as a barrage that reduces speed. The shields are probably not going to be that important. For skill number 2, she gets plus 10 evasion stat. That's nice. Plus, it gets an additional 5% more every ship that is destroyed by her, and that stacks 3 times, meaning that In total, she can get a 25% evasion stat boost if she's destroyed 3 enemies. If the Vanguard fleet only has Emden in it, ignore the low ammo debuff. So if you're doing a 1-1 fleet or a 1-3 fleet, then you don't have the low ammo debuff effect. If there are other Ironblood ships, SMS or KMS, in the fleet other than herself, reduce the HP of those ships by 11, that's literally nothing, 5 seconds after the battle starts, and buff their firepower by 10%. This does apply to main fleet ships. So she can just buff any of the other Ironblood ships by 10% firepower by taking 11 HP. 11 HP is negligible. It doesn't even take the HP at the start of the battle. It takes the HP 5 seconds after the start of the battle. So that's interesting. This actually means that she's going to be a buffer. That's her main role here, is a firepower buff. And she's a Vanguard ship that does the firepower buff. So yeah, that's the end of her skills. Obviously the third skill is an all-out assault. Overall, this ship was kind of looking meh to me, but that last part of the firepower boost means that we have a Vanguard ship that's going to buff our main fleet DPS, which is something that's pretty rare and powerful. So if you're going to be running like KMS, this is probably something you want. We obviously have a lot more ships to go through, so we'll see if there's any synergies with that. But overall, this was a little bit less than I expected, but she seems all right. I'm going to still pick her up. Continuing on with the SRs, we have the battle cruiser SMS Seydlitz, and unlike Emden, she is going to be droppable from the map as well as purchasable in the event shop. This means that she's effectively free if you play the event. Initially, I wanted to compare her stats to another German battleship, that is Bismarck. Stat-wise, her stats are significantly lower in terms of HP and firepower, which are the two important ones for battleships and battlecruisers. Even reload is lower. Now, what is with this event and having really weird equipments though? She has a battleship gun that has higher efficiency than Bismarck, and then for her secondary gun, she can equip a light cruiser gun or a destroyer gun, and for her third slot, she can equip a second destroyer gun or an anti-air gun. This means that she has this like oddity where she can give up her anti-air gun to get an extra auxiliary gun as a battle cruiser. This is, I believe, new. I don't know of any other ship that can do this. This is going to be very important if you're playing in PvE and you have a lot of suicide boats and not a lot of incoming aviation damage. You know, for the likes of World 9 and World 10, where you don't really have to worry about planes too much, but they have tons of boats that they can, you know, have the suicide boats hit you. She's going to be able to have 2 guns. She's going to be able to have a light cruiser gun, and then she's going to be able to have a secondary destroyer gun. Both of those are going to be on top of her main salvo gun. So she's actually going to be really good at shooting down suicide boats if you spec into that. That's actually really unique and interesting. All right, let's move into the skills, and hopefully they make up for her less than stellar stats. Skill number 1, when there are at least 2 Ironblood ships in the fleet, that includes herself, she increases her firepower and reload by plus 18%. Okay, that right off the bat puts her firepower right over Bismarck, so I guess her skills make up for the stats being lower right there. I mean, 18% is a pretty big boost there. I guess that makes sense why she has lower stats. I'm guessing they're trying to make the stats more in line with her actual historical specs, which, because she's an old ship from World War I, they're going to be much lower than the World War II ships, and then they make up for it with the skills because, you know, power creep and making sure that they're still relevant. They're not useless. Anyway, continuing. The higher the HP that Seydlitz has at the start of the battle, oh, this makes a lot more sense with the other skill, the Emden skill, that takes the HP 5 seconds after the start of the battle, so it doesn't conflict with this skill. That's a little neat synergy there. Okay, the higher the reload time reduction she gets for her first main salvo gun, the lowest it can be is 20%, the highest it can be is 80%. Dang. So she basically gets a potential 80% first salvo reload reduction. This makes her just like Vittorio Veneto, if that's the case. I have to go look into and see how we get to the 80%. Like, how much HP does she need to get 80%? I'm assuming that it's going to be like a raw number, so we have to get her leveled to, like, you know, 120 maxed, and I don't know. I don't think we're going to have to put HP equipment on her, but hopefully we can get to 80% pretty easily by just, you know, doing all of her base stuff and leveling her up. But 80%, if that's the reduction, is insane. That is crazy good. Maybe we're going to have a relevant PvP ship here. I don't know that, but it is an early strike here, and that's going to be good regardless. Even in PvE, early strikes are really good for bosses. They're really good for mobs. They're just really good all around. So anyway, that's awesome. Still going with skill number 1. Divert and receive 60% of the damage received by other Ironblood ships in the main fleet. So we don't get to protect the Vanguard fleet, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. Reduce the damage taken this way by 20%. Damage diverting mechanism will be disabled after the second skill is activated. So we'll have to read the second skill in a second. So when the second skill isn't activated, what's going to happen is when a main fleet German ship takes, like, let's say 100 damage, 40 of that damage is actually going to go to the ship that actually took that damage. 48 of the damage is going to go to Seydlitz, and 12 of the damage is just going to be reduced completely. So that's kind of how that reads in terms, in simple terms of where that damage is going to go. Moving on to skill number 2, we have evade the first fatal shot. Okay, so if she would take damage that would kill her, she just dodges it, guaranteed. This is kind of reminding me of a hero skill. Oh boy, are we getting a PvP ship here? We have the early strike, and now we have this. Afterward, evade all damage for 10 seconds. This is like a mini hero skill. Of course, this is evade, so it's going to work more like enterprise and not like hero, meaning that you can actually still ram her and she'll take the ram damage because she's not evading those. She can only evade things that have a chance at missing. Ramming, obviously, you can't miss at all. Heal herself 22% of her max HP. Holy crap, that is a huge heal, and probably enough of a heal that makes ramming not really relevant, because, typically Enterprise, when she was low, you would just kind of ram her and just get that last little bit, but 22% heal of 7,500, that's more than what ramming's gonna be able to get you. Also, she reduces her self-damage received by 5%, and that lasts until the end of the battle. So as soon as you get it, she gets a 5% damage reduction. So honestly, that's a really good. She evades the fatal hit. She gets invincible for 10 seconds virtually. She heals herself 22%, and she has a damage reduction for the rest of the battle. All right. I mean, that's really strong, and we're still going here. The higher HP that she has, the higher damage buff she receives, up to 20%. The lower HP she has, the higher received damage reduction she gets, up to 20%. So this actually is going to be very similar to FDG's skill. Note that the 20% damage reduction she gets from this skill does not reduce any of the damage that she takes from skill number 1. So when she's taking damage for the other ships in the main fleet, she doesn't get the 20% damage reduction. Anyway, this skill is going to work very similarly to how FDG's skill works. As she has more health, she's going to deal more damage. As she loses that health, she's going to lose the damage that she can deal, but she's going to now receive less damage. It's kind of working like a gradient here, whereas FDG kind of has these step functions, but it's the same concept. When she's healthy, she deals a lot of damage, and when she's hurting, she focuses on damage reduction rather than damage dealing. So far, I'm really liking this ship's skills, and we still have a third skill to get through. Skill number 3, proc a special barrage at her first main gun salvo firing. It's just like a standard barrage here, nothing too special. When Seydlitz is not the flagship, and the flagship has a Shadow of the Past skill. Okay, I talked with my translators, and Shadow of the Past is something that they translated it. It's, a rough translation to what it is in Chinese, but it could be different when it comes here to EN. But basically, this is a type of skill, basically a sub-archetype of the SMS faction. Every SMS ship in this event has this Shadow of the Past skill. This is almost like divvying up a separate faction for SMS. So this basically only applies to SMS ships, because all the SMS ships in the game after this event will have this skill, and no other ships will have this skill. So it breaks down KMS and SMS really easily by this type of skill. I'm not sure if in the future they're going to add more SMS, and if they do, they're going to have this skill, but all the ships in this event are going to have this skill. This is actually a really unique new precedent that's coming out that we're going to have these special type of skills that are tied to an event or maybe tied to a subgenre of ships. I actually kind of do like it, especially since it gives kind of SMS their own character that's different from KMS. Anyway, let's figure out what happens when you do have a flagship with the Shadow of the Past skill, or basically effectively have an SMS ship in the flagship that's not Seydlitz. The higher HP that ship has, that ship being the flagship, the higher reload time reduction that ship gets for her first main gun salvo, the lowest being 20%, the highest being 80%. Okay, this is amazing. Basically, this is her first skill that gives her a potential of 80% reduction in her first salvo cooldown if she has a lot of HP at the start of the battle, and she gets to apply it to basically any SMS ship that is in the flagship. Of course, Lutzow, who we haven't gone over yet, is a SR battle cruiser for the SMS. So we'll have to look to her. This is obviously, going to target Lutzow probably, but Thuringen is an elite battleship, and this would also work with her, as well as any, future ships that have that skill. But yeah, this is basically giving a cooldown reduction to another ship, and she's going to get the cooldown reduction for herself, because obviously all the ships that have the Shadow of the Past skill are Ironblood ships, meaning she'll proc the other skills. So yeah, she's going to have basically her getting a potential 80% cooldown reduction and giving it to someone else. That is amazing. Okay, my initial reaction to this ship is that her stats suck, and that's unfortunate, but she's got really useful equipment and decent efficiencies, and her skills are built for just being good. This is a PvP ship, definitely for KMS, so maybe we'll see something PvP related. I don't know. This ship is definitely one I was not that excited about coming into, but the skills on this thing make me very excited about it. It makes me really excited to go into Lutzow. We're going to do that ship next because I just have to know, is this going to be like a pairing I can throw into PvP? Because obviously this skill is built for Lutzow. So let's just go into her right now. SMS Lutzow is a SR battle cruiser, just like Seydlitz. You're gonna have to get from the gacha though, so good luck. She has more HP and firepower than Seydlitz. She also has more torpedo stat, and I didn't mention this in the other ship, but this torpedo stat is not because she can fire torpedoes like with a slot, but because she has a barrage that fires torpedoes. Her anti-air is garbage, just like Seydlitz, but these are, World War I ships, so that makes sense, historically at least. So stat-wise, nothing too special. She's got that same funky, goofy destroyer gun, light cruiser gun, switching the AA gun for a destroyer gun. Her efficiencies are lower for her battleship main gun, and that is a bad thing. So hopefully she has a skill that increases that efficiency. I don't know. We'll get into skills, but stat-wise, she is, similarly not that impressive like Seydlitz, but we'll see the skills and what they have. But remember, also, she's going to be having an 80% cooldown reduction because there's no way you're going to play this ship without Seydlitz, I don't think. Seydlitz just so strong. Okay, the first skill is plus 10% main gun damage when she fires her main gun. So this means the more she fires, the more damage she's dealing. She gets stronger throughout the battle. That's actually really important to get the 80% cooldown reduction then, because you need to fire more throughout the battle to get this skill to work. So yeah, she has to go with Seydlitz. Also, when she fires a main gun, there's a 70% chance to fire a special barrage. Holy crap, this barrage is powerful with like torpedoes and everything. This is a very strong barrage, and it's 70% chance. That makes sense. This looks very powerful that it's not guaranteed, but if you can get this to go off, that's going to hurt. All right, moving on to skill number 2. Skill number 1 was really quick and easy. Plus 5% self firepower and accuracy stat for every enemy ship killed by Lutzow. Interesting. This stacks up to 3 times, so she can get a 15% buff to her firepower and accuracy stat. She gets a 15% buff to her own reload stat when she does stack 3. So she really needs to kill 3 ships. This is definitely not something that's PvP oriented. This is a mob ship. Like, there's not too many situations where to get to full power, she needs to kill 3 things, and that is something that's only really going to be consistently done in a mob situation. So this skill is it tells me she's a mob ship, and that's kind of I don't know. I was looking at Seydlitz and that pair, and it was like PvP, and now it's like, oh, this is mob. I guess the light cruiser was kind of a mob ship too. All right, so third and final skill: deal 10% more damage against battleships and battle cruisers. That's really cool because this is obviously fighting against the World War I ships where there's not really carriers. So getting into those triple BB battles that the old meta was into. This reminds me kind of how like Amagi is really good in the triple BB battles where, you're trying to dodge their salvos and things like that. And this reminds me of that, right? She's really buffing the situation where you're fighting 3 battleships or battle cruisers on 3 battleships or battle cruisers. So that's really cool. 10% damage is nothing to scoff at here. It's just a complete buff. Regarding ships that are killed 5 seconds after receiving damage from Lutzow, they are considered destroyed by her. Oh, that is completely a new mechanic and very interesting. So it really goes with that second skill where she needs to get 3 kills to be full power, but she doesn't actually need to get 3 kills. She just needs to have dealt them damage within the last 5 seconds before they died. If someone else finishes them off, that's just fine. So that makes, skill number 2 a lot easier to obtain, but, in certain situations, you might not be fighting 3 enemies in the first place. So interesting. When equipping an SAP gun or an AP gun, no HE, sorry, or normal, enemies hit by Lutzow receive a negative 10% firepower and accuracy stat debuff. So she debuffs things that she hits. I really like this for those triple battleship fights. She's really built for that. That debuff only lasts 3 seconds though, so that's not very powerful. However, after the 3 seconds is up, there's a 10% chance that it deals 3,000 extra damage. That is a lot of extra damage, but a 10% chance is, 1 in 10 is not a lot. And the debuff she gives only lasts for the 3 seconds. I don't know how I feel about this ship. I feel like, I don't know, I was super hyped for this when I saw Seydlitz. This ship comes in and it's like, I don't know, that barrage is so strong, but she's kind of almost like a mob. And then she's like, I don't know, that third skill, she doesn't seem like she has a theme going on. She's got the barrage going on, then she's got this mob fleet going on, and then she's got this like triple battleship fight duel going on for the third skill. Her literal best tactic here is the fact that she is going to be getting a buff from Seydlitz. Her best skill is not even a skill that she has on her, but yeah, I guess if you're going to play Seydlitz, you should definitely pick this ship up because those two probably need to be paired. I guess Seydlitz doesn't need her. Seydlitz can get the boost somewhere else and give her the quick launch time. But anyway, I don't know how I feel about Lutzow, but those are the SRs, so we can move into the elites now. We'll start off with the light cruiser SMS Elbing. Stat-wise, she is just straight weaker than Emden by quite a lot, but she's got more weird equipment things going on. That seems to be a theme with this SMS event. She can equip light cruiser gun or torpedoes, and then for her third slot, she can actually swap out her anti-air guns for a second set of torpedoes. Okay, it's just playing gimmicks, I guess. We'll go on to skills real quick. She gets plus 15% evasion. Every 5 main gun weapon attacks, she can get a plus 5% firepower and anti-air stats, and that lasts until the end of the battle and has a max of 3 stacks. So in theory, she can get 15% evasion, and then she can get 15% firepower and anti-air after she's fired 15 main gun attacks. When she shoots down an enemy plane in the anti-air circle, she gets 3 stacks immediately. This skill is, KMS really likes this skill, and I don't know. There's like, all the Z ships have this, and it's just not very good. Moving on to skill number 2. Takes 15% less damage from torpedo weapons, so that's nice, especially since she's in the Vanguard. So if we're fighting in like a Torp v Torp battle, this kind of reminds me of how Noshiro works, so that's nice. When she launches torpedoes from this ship, if there are no enemies within 30 units, she fires an AP barrage. Otherwise, she fires an HE barrage. So that's interesting. Let me think about this for a second. When she launches her torpedoes, if there's no enemies around, she's going to fire an AP barrage. And then if they are there, like really close by, she fires an HE E-barrage. I guess that could mean that she is going to light on fire maybe some of the light armor enemies that she's really close to. It's kind of a weird discrepancy between switching barrages of the type of ammo you're using based on the distance the enemies are when you fire torps, but whatever. And then her third one is just an all-out assault. Overall, I think that this ship is, just kind of pack filler, if you want to think of it that way, but she cute though, so you can't knock her on that. Next up we have SMS Yorck. In terms of stats, I'm going to be comparing her obviously to Rune, and I think pretty clearly we see that she is going to be a downgrade from the old PR1 ship in almost all levels of stats. Even when we look at the equipment of this elite heavy cruiser, she's much worse off than Rune. She of course gives up her anti-air guns and gets a torpedo slot and a secondary light cruiser or destroyer gun slot, but Rune just gets a main gun +1 slot on the initial heavy cruiser gun and then just has torpedoes and anti-air. I guess she gets preloaded, so that's something. Moving on to the skills, let's see if she has anything that makes her interesting or unique or good. Skill number 1 is quite possibly one of the shortest skills I've ever seen, +15% stats to firepower and accuracy, +10% hit rate to destroyers. Only destroyers, because it would have been too busted to just be 10% hit rate to everybody from this terrible ship. Well, it's not terrible yet. We haven't finished all the stats, but I have a sneaking suspicion she's going to be waifu over meta. Skill number 2, she takes 15% less damage from torpedoes, very similar to actually Elbing, so that's interesting. Every 20 seconds after the battle starts, she gains a shield that blocks 3 torpedoes, and the shield lasts for 20 seconds. So this is anti-torpedo warfare. This actually reminds me a lot of the Italian event in that they have this like anti-torpedo thing. KMS obviously has been notoriously weak to the torpedo meme fleets, but I don't think this is going to be enough to do it. Her third and final skill is just an all-out assault. This one is obviously going to be a waifu over meta ship, but if you're a big Rune fan, you can get the OG sister, so that's kind of cool, I guess. We'll move on to the final ship in the event, but we also have the second additional NPC event afterward. SMS Thuringen is an elite battleship, and she is obtainable through getting the points accumulation, so 10,000 points is not that hard if you play the event, so effectively she's free. Her stats are, what can I say? She has less than 6,500 HP. Her firepower is also under 400, and man, she really feels like a relic of the past with these stats. She's got that weird equipment swapping where she can put a DD gun instead of an AA gun in that slot for extra auxiliary kills, but that's about it. Let's see what she's got skill-wise. Skill number 1, 70% chance to fire a barrage when the main gun finishes loading. Not when you fire the main gun, it's when it finishes loading. Enemies hit by the blue shells in this barrage, which, there are 2 blue shells at the beginning of the barrage and 2 at the end, so all the shells in between don't matter for this next part of the skill. Those are the only 4 that matter. Any ship hit by those have 8% reduced evasion stat, and they take 12% more damage from other Iron Blood ships in the main fleet for only 10 seconds though, so you do have to time this up. 10 seconds is a decent window, but you do gotta make sure she fires first. I guess the really nice part about this is because it activates when her main gun finishes loading, that means it will fire before she fires her salvo, hopefully, and you can delay it if you're playing manual, and then she can actually buff herself. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a cool mechanic, but it's just okay. Let's move on to her second and final skill. When the second weapon slot is equipped with an Iron Blood gun, and remember the second auxiliary slot can equip a light cruiser gun or a destroyer gun, so you got lots of options. There is a 70% chance upon firing that gun to fire an additional 2 extra shell barrages. It triggers once per 10 seconds. So it's just a little bit extra damage to make equipping Iron Blood guns on her for her auxiliary slot more impactful, so you're not going to just pick the best in slot auxiliary gun. For all ships, she's going to have, you're going to want to put a German gun on her. All right, that's it for the main event, but we also have the NPC event where we get Little Prinz Eugen, so let's take a look at her. Like all little ships, she's going to be the same type of ship, heavy cruiser as the original. She's going to have very similar stats to the original, but just a little bit lower. She's going to be elite rather than SR, and yeah, in terms of weapons, weapons and loadout, it's all going to be the same. So really we have to look at skills and see if giving up a little bit of stats is worth it to get the new type of skill. So she really only has one skill outside of her all-out assault, which is going to be the exact same. So her one skill is she spawns a set of rotating shields at the start of the battle. Blue shields block 4 shells each. Purple shields block 2 torpedoes each. Red shields deal extra damage when she rams into enemies up to 6 times. Each shield lasts for 10 seconds and they respawn every 30 seconds. So she comes out with the shields for 10 seconds, then is 20 seconds vulnerable. Then at 30 seconds, she has another 10 seconds that she's safe, and it will continue on like that. That's a lot of shields she's got, and it's basically for every type. Ramming, torpedoes, shells, obviously not aviation, so that's, not there. And, arcing shells are going to be able to get around these shields. Shields are just not really that great, but honestly, this skill is probably makes her the queen of shields. She was, the original shield tank in the game, so it makes sense that her little version is really into shields too. Does this make her good? No. Does it make her fun to use if you need a lot of shields? I guess. Maybe you could do something fun with her in, like, I don't know, trying to get an EX mode clear with, all the shields if there's a lot of, barrages that are causing you issues. I don't know. She's just there for the must protect crowd, but yep, so that's her and what she does. Okay, now I'm going to have a more comprehensive review of all these ships now that I've had a chance to look at them and, instead of reading them individually, I can see how they work together. There have been 2 actual insights that have come in since I actually read my first impressions of the ships, and I think they're kind of important. They are both related to Emden. The first one is just aesthetic, but it's the fact that you can actually switch her outfit between her dark version and her light version based on the gun you equip in her auxiliary slot. The light cruiser gun is going to have the dark mode, and the destroyer gun is going to have her in light mode. So that's a really cool mechanic of having her outfit switch based on which guns you're putting on her. I really like that. I don't know. It's just kind of cool to me. Additionally, she also has a secret ghost gun that has 30% efficiency. This is going to help her a lot in the DPS. It's pretty powerful. So I just didn't mention the ghost gun because it wasn't out there right when I was getting this first impressions read. Sometimes the data mines work like that. We learn as we go. We know kind of the basics of where to look, but sometimes, when you're going through that code and everything, there's just new things. So she's got a ghost gun. It makes her have more DPS than usual. So with those 2 added points in mind, let's talk about how I think the event is overall. I think this event is perfect for where it is. Obviously, we're going to probably get a UR event at the end of May when we have the Chinese anniversary. I'm hoping it's HMS for you guys. So it's, we had to have something else. We didn't want to have all these HMS events, I guess, back to back to back. We got a German event, and I know a lot of people have been like, we got a lot of German events, too many paper ships. I'm kind of bored of them. And we get SMS. We get World War I ships. We get real ships from not KMS, but from Imperial Germany. Really exciting. I think the artwork for Emden is fantastic. I think Seydlitz is kind of just like, I don't know, that's how Seydlitz looks like how I would imagine a Little Bismarck would look. Like when I saw her, I was like, oh, it's Little Bismarck. That's just my head. But like Emden's really good. We have this vampire theme that's really cool. There's, just basic event. There's nothing like flashy, but each of the ships are good in their own right. I mean, at least the SRs are. Emden and Lutzow are certainly like average, and Seydlitz brings a lot new to the table. We got some new mechanics in the fact that they have a special skill that differentiates SMS from KMS. I'm super happy that they made that differentiation between Imperial Germany and Nazi Germany. I think Seydlitz is the most hype of this event. I think it has the potential to bring, Germany into using a PvP fleet. I think it also is like helpful for boss fleeting. Seydlitz is definitely the to-get ship of this event, in my opinion, and that's really easy to do because she's like the guaranteed ship. You just have to get 8,000 event points and she's yours for free. So she's the easiest ship to get in this whole event, and so that's really neat. Emden is probably my favorite in terms of artwork, and the flipping mechanic is just cool. So for me, it's a must get. I'm definitely going to pick her up, and she's also pretty decent. I mean, I don't know if she would be more powerful than mains. I mean, maybe once we do some further analysis and testing and all that stuff, we can give you a decisive answer, but preliminarily I would say like she's not more powerful than mains at Fate 5 at least. Lutzow was definitely like when I got I wasn't even thinking about. And then I saw Seydlitz. I was like, oh, now I'm really excited. And then she kind of, I don't know, she just didn't fit that same theme, but she's okay. All the elites are, they're fine. They're just going to be, you know, your collection ships. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of artwork over there. I like the art for this event too. So overall, I think this event's actually going to be really good. Obviously, there's no equipment with this event, but that seems okay to me because this is an event from pre-World War II ships. So the equipment that it would bring, in theory, should be weaker than everything that we already have. Overall, I really like where this is going because it is like a minor event that is intriguing. And I think that's perfect for and what we need, you know, leading up to May, which is going to be huge, I think. I think May is going to bring a lot of good stuff for us. That's just speculation, but that's what I think. Personally, I am going to be willing to drop a bunch of cubes here. So I am in danger because these non-UR events don't have pity systems. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I will probably be streaming this event, so be on the lookout for that. And otherwise, enjoy the event, take care, and until next time.